The Asian Pacific Islander American Public Affairs Association presents City Council Candidate Forum 2016, featuring the candidates running for Cupertino City Council. And now, Don Sun.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the City Council Candidate Forum. This forum is hosted by Asian Pacific Public Affairs Association with support of the city of Cupertino. The mission of APAPA is to promote Asian Americans to participate in community services and civic engagement. The Silicon Valley chapter's board member are here, and Kris, would you stand up? Yeah. He will be our moderator. The other member is Jerry Chen, Angela Kauser, Eileen Cole, Vicky Zhang, and Teresa Lai. Yeah, outside, she just stepped in. We appreciate the following sponsors: the Beijing Duck Restaurant, Marina Food Market, Mastermind College, and the Quick Data Printing, and the NCC ABA, the president of the NCC ABA, their Northern California Chinese Contractor Association. To all the candidates participating in today's forum, we would like to express our appreciation for your work in the community. Thank you for your selfless devotion to the public service. We wish this forum will bring to our community positive energy and foster trust and understanding among us. Now let me give the stage to Kris, who will moderate today's forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Don San, and welcome to Cupertino and APAPA Silicon Valley chapter. I'm your moderator tonight, Kris, and today we have 7 out of the 8 City Council candidates confirming to show for this forum. Right now, we are still waiting for Mr. Valvitos, but we'll start. And as you can see, sitting before you is starting from my left, Mr. Bharwad, Mr. David Fung, Mr. Jerry Liu, Mr. Stephen Scharf, Councilmember Ross Sinks, and we're waiting for Mr. Vitos and former Mayor Kris Wang. So the format of this forum will be as follows. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to introduce themselves. Then we'll ask a series of questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to answer the questions. Before the candidates is our timekeeper, Bai Qing. She has a 30-second card, a 15-second card, and stop card. When your time is up and Bai Qing shows stop, please stop. And I ask all the members of the audience to hold your applause until all the candidates have answered each question. Thank you. Okay, without further ado, we'll start. The first one will be self-introduction. The self-introduction will start from Mr. Bharwad and then go down the aisle. And then the first question will be first answered by Mr. David Fung, and so on. So, Mr. Bharwad, it's yours.
Okay. Hi, my name is Parth Bharwad. I want to start by thanking Don and APAPA for hosting this event. I'm a product of this community. I went to Kennedy Middle School and Monte Vista High School, and I'm 20 years old, so I'm a millennial, which is significantly younger than many of the decision makers in our city. Before I talk about my policy, I think it's important for us to address the fact that a lot of people in this town feel like the city council has forgotten about them and is not working for them. When people tell me that they don't trust the council, I tell them back that, listen, we don't need to go to ballot initiatives. What we need to do is vote people into office who we can trust. And that's one of the things that I'm trying to convey to people, that you need to elect the person who you trust to this office, and that should be the reason why you elect them, not based on anything else. My experience started my freshman year when I worked for then Assemblymember Fiona Ma. She's been a big supporter of mine since then, and I'm very glad to get her endorsement first. After that, I worked in Congressman Honda's office in his Student Advisory Commission, and this was a real experience that I got in working with students my age and making a difference in our community. It really showed me that if students get together and millennials get together, we can make a change in this community if we're given the right platform and the right stage. My platform for my campaign revolves around youth empowerment as well as sustainable development. Now, within sustainable development, you deal with the issues of public safety and traffic. I think that those two issues need to be looked at first when we look at development, as opposed to looking at short-term or long-term benefits to the economic health of the city. The most important health of the city is how the citizens feel, and if the citizens aren't happy, the city is not healthy, in my opinion. We have a history of investing in our youth in this community, and we always boast about our schools. And I think it's time that we elect someone from our school system who has a unique perspective of being born in this country, in this area, and having grown up in this area. Thank you for supporting my campaign. Thank you, supporters, for coming here today. And for the rest of you, I hope to earn your support at the end of this forum. Thank you.
Please hold your applause to all the candidates who have made their introduction. Thank you. Now, thank you, Parth and David.
Hi, I'd like to start off by thanking APAPA for the opportunity to participate in this forum. My name is David Fung. I've lived in Cupertino for 30 years and started working at Apple as a software engineer while attending Stanford. I'm married, my wife is here, and my son attends Monte Vista High. I've had an extensive involvement at City Hall and with our 2 school districts. If elected, I want to apply my experience and leadership skills toward keeping Cupertino a beautiful and desirable community for our families today, as well as those in the future. We're facing great divisions in Cupertino and across the nation. As your councilman, I want to engage with all parties to find constructive solutions for our challenges. Our answers will not be black and white. My experiences have prepared me to work with the community to craft a vision and build consensus. I truly believe we will find our best solutions together collaboratively. If elected, I'll work to keep enhancing our parks and open space. I'm serving my 6th year on the Cupertino Parks and Recreation Commission, including 2 terms as chairman. And during those years, we've delivered a number of major improvements to our parks and open space, including the new Environmental Ed Center at McClellan Ranch and opening the Stockelmeyer Orchard to the public for the first time. On the council, I'll continue to advocate for the improvement of our parks, open spaces, and for a clean environment. If elected, I also want to strengthen the important working relationship with the city that keeps our schools great. Through my extensive involvement with the schools, I've developed a deep understanding of the challenges and a unique insight into how to address them. The strength of my relationship with the schools is reflected in the endorsements I've received, which include the entire high school Board of Trustees, 4 of the 5 board members from CUSD, administrators from both districts. I'd be honored with an opportunity to serve you. My name is David Fung. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And Jerry?
All right. So first of all, I'd like to also thank APAPA for the opportunity to be here today. My name is Jerry Liu. My Chinese name is Liu Jingzong. My family immigrated to America from Taiwan when I was 9. I studied electrical engineering at Cornell University and moved to California after graduation. Like 40% of the Cupertino residents, my wife and I chose to settle in Cupertino for its excellent schools. My wife, Jennifer, immigrated to America from China when she was a teenager. And we have 2 adorable girls, Sarah and Liz, who currently attend Lincoln Elementary. Professionally, I work in the tech industry. I'm a research manager at HP Labs. I consider myself fairly active in community volunteerism. I currently am serving my 2nd term as the chair of the Cupertino Library Commission. I'm also involved in a number of other volunteer organizations around the city, including the Cupertino Library Foundation, Lincoln School PTA, and Bay Area for Clean Environment. I'm running for Cupertino City Council because fundamentally, I want to keep Cupertino a family-friendly town, the town that we chose to move to. And what that means is basically for me a couple of things. It's about working with residents to address some of the issues that come from growth, such as traffic, housing, and schools. And then I also want to keep my eye on a number of issues that doesn't quite get the attention, but actually very important to our quality of life in terms of libraries, parks, public safety, and so forth. And finally, it's about fiscal responsibility of spending our money wisely. I'm endorsed by 3 of the current 5 council members, Mayor Barry Chang, council members Wang and Paul. And well, I hope to have an opportunity over this next 90 minutes to share my views with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. And Stephen?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you, Don and APAPA. Cupertino is at a crossroads. In this election, voters will have to decide if they will elect council members that are controlled by developers or if they want sensible growth instead of the uncontrolled hypergrowth the developers have been advocating. We've all received tons of misleading mail from one particular developer promoting their project. I'm totally opposed to developers bypassing the California Environmental Quality Act requirement for an environmental impact report, as one developer is doing. They're spending millions of dollars with highly misleading ballot initiatives just to get the maximum profit, and that's their business. But looking out for the future of Cupertino is something the City Council should do. The council ignored the Planning Commission recommendation for no office allocation at Valco and instead allocated 2 million square feet. And in the mailers you get sent to your mailbox, you will rarely, if ever, see any mention of that 2 million square feet under the pretty green roof. The council had the option to write a compelling ballot argument against the initiative, but they chose to do nothing. What really saddens me is how developers have managed to pay some former city council members and coerce others to be co-conspirators in their efforts to bring tremendous harm to Cupertino and its schools. The lack of transparency in city government is something that must be addressed. City council members should publish their calendars and who they meet with. Also, we should have the minutes of all the city council meetings published again instead of just the videos. It's not too late to move Cupertino forward with sensible growth, and if elected, that's what I'll work for. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Councilmember Rod Sinks.
Thank you. I'm Rod Sinks. I'd like to thank APAPA for hosting this event. Like you, my family and I love Cupertino, which continues to be a highly desirable place to live and work. An effective council member brings a good head and a heart to the job as well as passions. And for me, those passions are education, transportation, and environment. As a parent, I share your desire to prepare our kids for a world of great opportunity and challenge. I've been a robotics mentor, a YMCA father-daughter leader, a Girl Scout volunteer, and a Scoutmaster. As we grow, I've worked to keep our schools strong, and they continue to rank among the best in the country. We can take pride in that. Development should strengthen our schools by providing affordable housing for teachers and more. Having managed 2 startups from infancy to success, I know what it takes to create a vision, build consensus, and make it happen. We face major challenges as we accommodate regional growth brought on by the booming economy. Regional growth requires regional solutions to traffic congestion. As your mayor in 2015, I reached out to West Valley and North County cities, and together we negotiated major funding in the pending VTA measure to improve our highway interchanges and roads and to bring new transit options. In 2015, we also initiated an ambitious new bike plan, jump-started with $2 million this year, creating safer, protected routes to schools, jobs, and shopping. As an environmental leader, I spearheaded creation of and chair the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority, bringing competition to PG&E with less expensive, carbon-free electricity for you in 2017. And I'm also fighting for cleaner air at the Air District, which is a very competitive assignment. I'm one of only 2 representatives of the 15 cities of the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. And we still don't have Mr. Valvito, so former Mayor Kris Wang.
You want to move up?
Right. That's all right.
You're okay over there?
Yeah, I'm comfortable here. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Kris Wang. Before I started my speech, I'd like to thank you all for coming this Sunday afternoon, not just supporting the candidates, but APAPA. Thank you for doing so. a former mayor and city council from 2003 to 2011. I'm also a retired high-tech engineer, a resident for 30 years in Cupertino. I am mother of 2 boys, and then most importantly, I'm also an immigrant. I remember when I first came to this country, my pocket hardly have enough money to pay my first month's rent. It's the community that supported me and helped me, and I'll be able to build my family here. Since moving to Cupertino in 1986, I have the pleasure to working alongside our residents for many years, and we have built a brand new senior centers. We have built a brand new library and this community hall. And that's the reason I decided to run the first time. Now with 5 years recharge, I'm ready. With the same passion, I would like to do, people look at my track record, and I know this year there's a lot of issues that city is currently facing. And I believe Cupertino need a experienced council member who has a track record of listening people, studying hard on issues, and then need no learning curve. Again, that my tracking record shows that I, strong on fiscal responsibility, and I'm also a big driver of Heart City Plan, with a plan that regulates our major corridors downtown to be big on the retail and set decent setback for housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. Okay, now we have heard the introductions of the candidates. We are moving on to the questions. Now, the first question will be answered by Mr. David Fung, then Jerry, and so on, and last by Parth. And the first question is this. In the election this year, we have 2 competing measures on the ballot, Measure C and Measure D. So, to the candidates, what are your positions on the 2 measures and why? David? 1 minute.
Yes. On the 2 measures, I'm, for reasons of governance, for reasons of good governance, and in support of our representative system, I actually oppose both measures. Measure C, in particular, poses many problems for governance in the future of our city, as well as some of the other things which you've seen, such as a 45-foot height. So there are a number of structural flaws that make that a very challenging, that make it something that I really couldn't support. Measure D is an interesting, in the case of Measure D, what we have there is something that is a project which is follows, I believe, reasonable urban planning guidelines. However, it is the first offer in a negotiation which was never continued. So for that reason, I would like to see that it be worked through the public process.
Thank you, David. Jerry?
To start out, I would just like to say that however the voters decide on Measure C and D, if elected, I will do my best to carry out the will of the voters on both of these initiatives. On Measure C, I understand that there are residents who are unhappy with the current process, and they're basically they're proposing a solution to address some of these issues. While I understand the concerns that they have and the questions that they're asking, because I don't believe in governing from the ballot box. I think the right thing to do, representative democracy works. It's about electing the right people into the office, and therefore I do not support Measure C. On Measure D, I like to see VALCO revitalized, but however, basically for me the same reason applies, is that I would like to see a process go through the city council with a full environmental reports and negotiations with city staff, and so therefore I don't support D also. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And Stephen?
Well, I'm one of the proponents of Measure C, so obviously I support it. And one other candidate did mention about governance by the ballot box. And in a perfect world, we wouldn't need that. But as you've seen in California, the initiative process is alive and well. And when our elected politicians don't do what the residents or the citizens want, we have the option to move to the initiative process. I would encourage everyone to read the general plan and Measure C and decide for themselves whether 45 feet will occur in neighborhoods, because of course it will not. Even if it was 1,000 feet, the applicable zoning limits the heights in neighborhoods to 28 feet or 18 feet, as the city attorney has stated. For Measure D, my main opposition is that they bypass the environmental impact report requirement of CEQA and also the 2 million square feet of office. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Rod?
Well, after 20 plus years of slow decline at Valco, I think most residents are happy to see the prospect of something new. The site is 50 acres. The developer proposes an audacious project with a total investment of $3 billion. Is it the right project? I've talked to lots of residents with widely varying opinions, and I respect them all. Under a normal development process, which I prefer, we would have brought the developer and community together to reach a consensus that the majority of our residents would support. I also expect that on such a large project, once we'd had the negotiation and finished the public CEQA process, the council would have called for an advisory vote from residents. But instead, we have quite a different process this year with competing initiatives that present black and white choices. I'm not a fan of doing land use planning at the ballot box. Having said that, I encourage you to study the city's impartial analyses of the initiatives and make choices in line with your vision for the city.
Thank you, Rod. Kris?
Thank you. In 2015, the city had held a called Economic Development Forum. At the end, the report came out not long ago that shows the issues that people are concerned about. There are 4 of them. Number 1 is affordable housing, 2, traffic, 3rd is the controlling growth, and then the 4th is preserving the quality of the public school systems. So I heard you. And I'm totally with you. I think the traffic's getting worse and worse, and we also need to do the controlling growth. And so one of the candidates has mentioned that. I think a Measure D has this kind of hiding this 2 million square foot of the offices. And can you imagine that will bring 10,000 people from outside the city to come in every day and night. So I'm not supporting the D, and I hope we can work it out and represent the people in Measure C. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And Parth?
So I am personally not in support of Measure C, and the reason being is that I think we need to restore trust in the city council as opposed to being held hostage in the city by a ballot initiative that is going to cause the change of all of the city's general plan and ordinances to make it align with Measure C, so I don't support it. I've heard some candidates mention governance by ballot, and as a resident who doesn't have a lot of experience in public government, I think a ballot initiative is a fair democratic way of getting a project approved or not approved, and so I don't think it's fair for us to say, as some people in office saying that governance by ballot is not allowed. The citizens have a opportunity to vote on these, and they should be encouraged to do so. Before I give you my response to Measure D, I want to make it apparent that I'm one candidate, and I'm not speaking on behalf of anybody else, but I'm not taking money from developers or special interest groups in Cupertino, and my views are based on how I feel and how I feel as a millennial resident of Cupertino. I will be voting yes on Measure D, and the reason being is that I will be voting yes on Measure D, and the reason being is that most millennials want it. Thank you. Sorry about that.
Thank you, Parth. Okay, that wraps up our question number 1. We have prepared 2 more easy questions for you. But before we do that, we will also take questions from the audience. So if you got anything you'd like to ask the candidates, please write them down on a card or piece of paper and give them to our Don San or Angelique Hauser, sitting at the far left corner. Okay, so the next question number 2, we'll start with Jerry. And the question is this: how would you differentiate yourself from the other candidates so that voters should vote for you. Jerry, you have 1 minute.
Sure. I'd like to make a couple of points. First, I think I can bring experience in corporate management to public service. I have experience at a large tech company of moving projects forward and basically holding people accountable and getting things done. Second, I'd like to mention that I've been very active in the community as a volunteer. Earlier this year, the city awarded me with the Crest Award. Basically, it's an award for volunteer contributions to the city. Putting a lot of time. Cupertino is where I plan to settle for a long, long time. I don't plan to ever move. So I care very much about this city. I also like to mention that I have the endorsement of 3 of the 5 council members. I think they put my trust in me, and I'm hoping that I can earn your trust over time as well. And the fourth is I'm a very collaborative person. I work well with people. And I think in times like this, when there are these different issues, I feel I can bring a new, different kind of leadership to the dais in getting people to work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And Stephen, you're next.
I think what I would bring to the council that differentiates me is I have a little bit of pessimism and a lot of critical thinking skills. I come to the city council meetings often. The public speaks, and then the developer or the petitioner speaks, and the citizens can't respond to any misinformation that the petitioner brings forward. But the council members can. And I've seen people sitting in the audience wanting to scream a question, but they're not allowed to do so. And they're begging that the council members would actually be a little more forthright and a little more critical of those that come seeking profit from the city, from building developments, from putting up cell towers, and that sort of thing. We don't have to always roll over when someone demands something from the city. We need to challenge them. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And Rod?
Well, I've demonstrated an ability to listen, understand, synthesize good ideas, organize other people on the council, as well as around the region, and then lead implementation of solutions to some of our toughest challenges. So I've done that with mayors in the North County and West Valley cities on transportation. We have $248 million coming in interchange and roads improvements, $350 million in transit improvements on the 85 corridor. I've done that with mayors in Mountain View and Sunnyvale in planning and bringing to life the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Authority. I've done that on the Air District Board, where we're working to protect human health with a plan that will bring an order of magnitude more health protection to the residents all the way from Petaluma to Gilroy. And so I'm working to serve you and fix these big problems that we have and make sure that Cupertino remains a place that we want to raise our kids at.
Thank you, Rod. And Kris?
Obvious, I'm the only woman. And I am the person with the most experience, with a good track record of listening to people, residents, and understand very well the general plan, the heart of city plan, and my passion is being in education, public safety, and that's always be my, and I have a strong voice of opposition and reckless development. So I hope, I get your support.
Thank you, Kris. And Parth?
Okay. I just wanted to quickly say that when I said yes from Measure D, I was in no way suggesting that voters should make their own informed decision. I got cut off, so. What differentiates me right off the bat, and I'm sure most of you can tell, is I'm younger than many of the decision makers in this city. I'm a millennial, and what this really brings is a new way of thinking and a new perspective on the decisions we're making as a city. Many kids my age are in college, and they're waiting to move back to Cupertino, and I think that as a millennial, I can bring their perspective perspective of the Cupertino that they want to live in the next years. Having experience is not really what differentiates you. What differentiates you is what you can bring to the table that someone else can't. And I was born and raised in this area. I grew up in Los Altos, and now I live in Cupertino. So I've seen this area grow and develop in the last 20 years that I've been alive. And I think that brings, again, a unique vantage point from which I can give my input on decisions that we make as a city council. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. And lastly, David.
Thank you. I think I bring a unique, really, really deep level of involvement in the community, both in the schools and in the city. In that involvement, I've been able to build very, very strong connections. I have a strong understanding of how the process works here. This is one of the biggest challenges for the community in trying to engage with the council, is that it's very often difficult to understand what the process is. You know, I've been able to learn that, and I'm very committed to communicating that outward as well. I'm very fact-based. That's maybe the engineer in me. And I think one of the most important things that I've learned as an engineer, as a manager, and as a community volunteer is really the best ideas come when we all work together, when we collaborate. So I really want to support that public process of engagement and really get people to feel that we can get to solutions that reflect what they want and what they need. Thank you.
Thank you, David. And that wraps up our question number 2. Before we dive into our question number 3, again, another reminder, if you have any questions, feel free to write them on a card or a piece of paper and pass them to Don San or Anjali sitting at the corner. And we'll choose probably 3 questions from the audience to ask the candidates. Okay, so here's our question number 3, and Mr. Stephen Scharf will go first. And the question is, if elected, what will be your number 1 priority to get done from the City Council? And please be as specific as possible. And Stephen, you have 1 minute.
Thank you. In talking to residents, the number 1 issue that concerns them is schools and school overcrowding. I don't know how many people here are familiar with ABAG, the Association of Bay Area Governments, but they have a mandate for new housing that's based on the amount of office space the city adds. If we add 2 million square feet of office, we'll be adding somewhere between 12 and 15,000 employees. That will require about 10,000 housing units. 10,000 housing units, depending on who you believe and depending on if they're rental or for sale, could generate 12,000 new students. Where will these students go? Will we just add more portables, as we've done in the past, or will we build new schools? If we'll build new schools, where will we put them? Because there's no land for new schools left. It's been sold off, other than a few parcels in Sunnyvale, Santa Clara, and I think that's it. So I think it's important. Schools are the number 1
Thank you,
issue.
Stephen. Your time is up. And Rod?
I'll take the opportunity to also address schools. I think it's the main reason that people invest in Cupertino, and we pay a premium to do that. And after several years of improved budgets, what sort of role can the city play? It's allowed us to repave and upgrade many of our roadways. Last year when I was mayor, we were one of 3 cities to win the federal government's Mayor's Challenge for most improved mobility. We added 3 miles of green bike lanes, 5 miles of buffers, and 138 sharrows, all important to allowing kids to get to school. And in the last 18 months, we've adopted perhaps the most ambitious bike plan in the country. And we've jump-started it with $2 million this year. Now, we have an intensive Safe Routes to School program underway. I'm the city schools liaison, have been for 2 years. We're working to improve safety and relieve congestion around schools, borrowing the successful model used in Palo Alto, and that will do a great deal to help our kids get safely around the community.
Thank you, Rod. And Kris?
As we all know that there's so many issues facing the city this year, so after election, the number 1 priority is to reunite the community. We don't like to see the community being divided. And I will try my best, work with my colleague to evaluate the impact from whatever the results, from any of the measures. We need to work together and to evaluate the impact on the development. We don't need to make a rush decision. And especially Valco is one of the largest development, probably one of the largest in the history. We need to listen to the resident, and we need to find a good solution that meets everybody's needs and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. And Parth.
So if I was to get elected, my first priority would be to carry out the decisions that the city makes on the ballot initiative, and this includes, as some candidates have mentioned, bringing the community together. When I moved here 8 years ago, we moved into a really joyful, happy community, and I think that these lawsuits and initiatives are pulling us away from the fact that, and it's pulling us away from us remembering that we all want what's best for Cupertino. Next, I think along with that, I want to really empower the youth in this community. As a student who just got out of school a couple years ago, I can tell you that we love our schools, and our schools are really good as they are right now. What we really need to do is, the first thing I want to implement is adding a student position on the commissions in the city to get the youth involved in planning commission, in public safety commission, to really bring their perspective to the city. And I think it can be valuable in helping both them and the city with new techniques to solving our problems. Second, I want to revamp the teen commission that we have with the city, because I think the city council appointing a teen commission is not the best representation of the leaders within the high school community, and so we need to hold the election with the student election every year. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. And David.
My first priority, if I'm elected, will be really to work on rebuilding the faith in the public process. The first step of that is to honor the outcome of this election, and that doesn't just mean the results of the initiatives. Of course we want to honor that and do the right thing for the community, but it's to honor the fact that this is reflective that there's a problem in the community, that there's a need that we need to address. I often tell people the worst way to communicate is when you're speaking with 3 minutes in a public hearing. The second worst way is probably to speak on Nextdoor. We really need to have a mechanism through which we begin to have bidirectional dialogue again, because that's the only way we're going to get to any place, to get to understanding, to get to a common understanding. And so I'm really committed to that. If it can be no more than me personally spending my time trying to meet and address these issues with people, then I'm happy to do that. But I really hope as a city we can do that. We can embrace that process and really make people feel empowered.
Thank you, David. And Jerry.
Right. So I have a long list of things I like to do, but I think fundamentally, and the reason why I'm running is I don't like the decisiveness in our community that's come up. And so my top priority for me would be to be an independent voice to try to bring people together so we can work together as a community. So a couple of thoughts, all right? So one is, I'm currently a commissioner, and I think there are things we can do to strengthen the roles of commissions in advising the council. I've had some thoughts about maybe neighborhood advisory groups that look at specific neighborhoods and provide the kind of input to the council that the commissions do. I'd like to increase transparency in the decision-making process, spending a little bit more money, putting out better minutes for the meetings. There's a city councilman in Sunnyvale who maintains a blog, and he talks about, after they make a decision, a lot of the stories of why they did something like that. I run a blog myself at jerrylou.com, and I would probably do something like that to have better outreach to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. And that's it for our first 3 questions. And we have selected a few questions from the audience. Thank you, Anjali.
Depending on how much time, because we only have until 5,
Okay, we have until 5?
Yeah, we have another 20 minutes, so.
Another 20 minutes? Okay.
Yeah, so just go down this way.
Okay. Okay, so we'll try to squeeze as many questions into the next 20 minutes as we can. Let's see how we do. And we'll start the first question with Councilmember Ross Sinks. And the question is how...
Want me to read?
Oh, yes, okay.
How will you demonstrate your skills in collaboration to accomplish your goals for the city?
Thank you very much. I've talked about how I've done that regionally. And some have talked about how we bring the community together. I'm most impressed with a process going on right now in the Fremont Union High School District. There's a fellow named Min Lee who's a mediator, who's running a process. I think we as a city can learn from that and do better. He's got a committee of 38 people from across the Fremont Union High School District looking specifically at how to address a declining enrollment at Lynbrook High School. And there's been a lot of skepticism about whether the school district was acting in the interests of everybody. After 5 meetings, I'm told that this group has developed a common bond of trust and understanding about data, like school demography data and other things. I think running a process like this with such a skilled facilitator would do a lot for our community.
Thank you, Rod. And Kris?
Thank you. I guess everybody knows City Council is a board of 5 members that, collaboratively we make the decision and we do the goal setting every year. I have a good track record that work with my colleagues, and I'm very proud that we have done a lot in the past. My 8 years, we have a lot of accomplishment. I will continue that effort, continue that passion to work with my colleagues in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. Parth?
So I think that where I can really demonstrate, where I have demonstrated my skills and contribution is, I don't know how many of you guys are familiar with the business clubs at Monte Vista. Well, the DECA Business Club ranks #1 in the world. And I was a part of that club for 4 years, working with high school students to put real business plans of 30 to 40 pages. Now, I know this sounds like, oh, he was in a high school club, but we were ranked #1 in the world, and it really involved working with a whole team and a whole team of officers to develop a plan, and this is while we were studying in school and doing homework. Next, also while in high school, I was a president of my Indo-American Student Association. Now, despite being just a high school club, we raised over $25,000 under my leadership in my 2 years as treasurer and president, and we hosted multiple events with a record 1,200 people at one of our dance events. Now, we brought together schools from across the whole community, from Fremont, Milpitas, Evergreen area, under my leadership to host these events. I believe that if I can work with teenage students to bring them together, I can bring this community together as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. David?
I think in terms of collaborative skills, I bring the ability to listen, to be very, very patient. Over time, I learned to be very thick-skinned, I believe. I was very proud as a young engineer, and basically over time kind of beaten out of me by people who worked for me and around me who were more talented. I'm an independent researcher. I want to make sure I really understand the issues, not just as they are fed to me, but going right back to the source. So I think an important part of what I've done in the past is, you build teams, you bring people together, and you need to be receptive to them bringing their best ideas and their best talents. And from our community like this, where everybody is so smart, we will come up with great solutions. We will come up with great solutions to very, very difficult problems. We have a unique ability to do that here, and I want to take advantage of that.
Thank you, David. And Jerry?
All right. So for me, collaboration is about finding about shared goals and listening to other people's opinions, right? Being able to serve other folks. I believe I've demonstrated that in my role in the Library Commission. I serve on the Cupertino Library Commission. All my fellow commissioners strongly support me for this campaign. And in terms of what I would do as a council member, I talked about bringing the community together. Right, I see a lot of discussions on Nextdoor, for instance, where people sort of go at each other using language that, frankly, if your kids were doing it, you send them to the principal's office. What I like to do as a council member is I find that when people sit down together and talk, that interaction is very different. And so I would use my listening skills, I would use my collaboration skills, and basically, get people together to really sit down to resolve the differences and exchange the views. All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Stephen?
First, let me say I'm the father of 2 millennials. Collaboration is something we have a real need for in Cupertino. We have a large number of commissions, and in talking to these commission members, they're very frustrated. They make proposals, they issue documents, and too often all their work is in vain. It gets dismissed by the city council with barely a look. We need to take advantage of these people. They're all volunteers. They have a lot of good input. We need to work together to implement some of their suggestions. And talking to my neighbor today, he's saying, what's going on with the park? I was over at the Fall Festival, and Memorial Park looks terrible. And I said, I don't know, but I know that the Parks and Rec Commission, I'm sure they would like to fix it up, but they need someone on the council to be supporting their efforts, because we need to, parks are something that residents really feel passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Okay, so that was the first question from the audience. The next question from the audience, it will start with Kris Wang. What have you done for our city's youth, who are the true future of the city? And you have 1 minute, Kris.
Thank you. Like I said earlier, serving on city council, my biggest passion and is in education, because I'm mother of 2 boys, and so we have started during my 8-year service. We have started a youth commission, and we'll bring the youth to represent all the youth group, and to listen, to open the parking, the sports center for the youth to do whatever their creative activities. So that's the one thing to show the youth. And also, like I said, I have 2 boys at home, and I always listen to them and support as the advisor to me on the youth issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. Parth?
So first of all, I want to thank all of the candidates for what they're going to say, because I am a youth of this community, and they truly have, in some way or another, affected my upbringing in this community, so thank you. As I said, I was a leader in my high school's Indo-American Student Association, and this club really grew under my leadership. We went from having maybe 1 event with a couple hundred, 300-400 kids, to hosting 4 to 5 events and calling world-renowned artists to come and sing in this, to come and perform in this area. So I've really tried to really help the youth in this community reach out and make more friends and kind of grow their network amongst the Bay Area, because I think that as they make more friends outside of this area, they can really grow and develop as they move forward. I think also that what I'm trying to do right now, running for city council, is for the youth and for my generation, because I want to make sure that if our parents decide to pass us their house, or if they decide to accommodate us in their house when we get older, we really want to live in Cupertino, and this is a town that we like. So I'm really hoping that if I get elected, I can really represent the wishes of the millennials. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. David?
As a father here, I've had a lot of interest in trying to do as much as I can to support youth. My son here. I've been a volunteer in the schools 2 times as a PTA president, 5 terms as a site council representative. I serve on the FUHSD Math Advisory Council. So we work there as a parent representative. I work with the administrators and the teachers to work on what the new math curriculum will look like, the transition to Common Core at the high school level. I also serve on the oversight committees for both CUSD and FUHSD, where we look at the use of the school bond money, which addresses these facility issues that people are so concerned about. Along the way, I've put in a lot of effort trying to create a path to help parents volunteer more easily by trying to be smart and efficient. People are very interested in being engaged. Sometimes it's very difficult to do that. And then I also have a lot of involvement with parks and open space, again, in support of youth and health in the neighborhood.
Thank you, David. Jerry?
Sure. So let me talk about some of the projects I've worked on. So I'm the president of the site council and the vice president of the PTA currently at Lincoln. And so for the last few years, I've been the main person running a lot of these book fairs, science fairs, and working with other parents, certainly fundraisers, right? So that's at a micro level. I've also basically, given some of the shortages we've had at the schools, connected the school with a library system so that the librarians can train the teachers and provide the resources. I'm the board vice president of the Cupertino Library Foundation, and my project for the last several years has been really focusing a lot of the library resources around education to basically focus on things like project-based learning. So for instance, I worked on you may have heard of a teen hackathon, overnight hackathon for high school students. We're the first city ever to do something like that for high school students. And we basically have a lot of these sort of projects so that the students have an opportunity to leverage library resources for their classroom work. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stephen?
Thank you. My kids went to Cupertino schools for all 13 years, and I was extremely involved in helping the schools. From enrichment day at the elementary school to probably the most amazing thing, being a chaperone on the 8th grade Yosemite trip. If you can survive that, you can survive anything. Also, then my kids were in high school. I was a band parent for 4 years, but actually I'm still a band parent even though my son has graduated and is in college. I still volunteer at Tournament of Bands every year, doing traffic and parking, working with the City of Cupertino's Public Works Department to make sure it goes smoothly. I think a lot of us, even when our kids are done with school, should still keep volunteering to help the schools. They really need it, and they really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Rod?
Well, I've done just that. I've continued to be a mentor and served the robotics team in the robotics teams in the community. We had a scrimmage yesterday with at the Fall Festival with Cupertino, Monte Vista, and Lynbrook, as well as the Girl Scouts all participating. So I've been doing that even in my time on the council. I would ask, are we building a place that our kids want to return to? So yes, do we have good schools, but also do we have the fun places, the destinations? Do we have affordable housing in this community? Many 20-somethings want to live and work near effective transit. That's the Cupertino many of us have a vision to build and create. And what I would suggest to you is we all ought to think about our kids in that way. Is this the place they want to come back to? Thank you.
Thank you, Rod. And that's it for this question. And for the next two questions, they're pretty similar. So we're going to synthesize them into one question. And we'll start back with you, Parth. And the question is, over the years, there has been many efforts and a lot of talk to get Valco revitalized. And aside from the measures that are on the ballot, what would you do if you were elected to help fix Valco? You have 1 minute.
So I think the first thing we need to do with Valco is we really need to see that what do the future generations want to see with Valco? We've seen that retailers don't have interest in being in Valco, so we need to move forward. And in my opinion, one of the main things that we need to do is build a new community center in the Valco area. Quinlan Center is quite small, and speaking from a high school perspective, we have a very difficult time renting it out, especially because oftentimes we don't have the funds, or oftentimes it's booked because it's a popular place to host events. So I think that there's room at Valco for there to be a center for students to come together and collaborate and work together, which is one of the main problems with the Cupertino Library currently, the lack of collaborative workspace for students to work together. We talk about providing kids with the opportunity to collaborate, and I think that at Valco, if we were to build a sports center and rooms for students to rent out, we could really help them, we could really boost them and help them excel in their chosen fields. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. David?
I'm a big believer in modern urban planning principles, and so that really means doing things, identifying areas where we want to concentrate development, and then doing that maybe at higher density, higher height, and what that does is that has the effect of giving us the services and things that we need without necessarily having it spread and sprawl across the entire town. That helps maintain the flavor of Cupertino as we know it today, while helping us move into the future. That also addresses areas like creating the ability for more affordable housing, because you might build smaller units, you might build units that are apartment style. So the focus, I would really, I'm a big supporter of that. I don't want to see Valco stay the way it is today. And so those are the things I would focus on as we want to move forward into trying to make it into a place that fully contributes and fully participates in the city. There are so few places we have here. We're completely infill building here. There are so few places, so few opportunities that I really believe that this is one that we don't want to miss out on.
Okay, thank you, David. Jerry?
All right, so I think this question assumes that the Measure D doesn't pass, right? And it's basically what happens after that. For me, let me take this in two parts. Let me talk about what I would do, and I can talk about how I feel about Valco. I think what I like to do is basically, and you look at the last couple of months, there's been a whole lot of community outpour in terms of opinions of where that should go. And I think we should harness that energy. I don't want to come in as a council member and say, hey folks, I want it this way. This is what we're going to do. I really want to have a true collaborative sort of a session or sort of a process to get inputs from people. I feel like this is one of the largest usable parcel of land in the city. We have a lot of needs in terms of office, housing, and balance. The residents want more retail. And so I think we should, I'm not in favor of remaining it the way it is. And I would like to see basically some sort of a mixed use that, that can help to address some of these needs we have. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Stephen?
I would like to see Valco remain primarily as retail. I don't know how many people here are aware, but in 2014, the department stores, Sears and Penney's, emphatically said they did not want to leave. The decline of Valco was not an accident, it was intentional. Valco should remain retail, dining, and entertainment. It should not have 2 million square feet of office because that will impact the schools, and there's really no land to build more schools to deal with that. There's sufficient office in Cupertino. I support what the Planning Commission suggested, which is no office allocation at Valco. We have very little land left. We have very little retail. Obviously, we should keep the retail zone land as retail, even if it's more valuable to the developer as something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. And Rod?
Yeah, I spoke to this before. After all this time and slow decline in Valco through many owners, I think most people do look forward to something new. Our retail expert, and I've talked to many independent of that, many developers who have no love of the current developer there, who would stand in competition were the property sold. Most folks say we need mixed use there for it to work. There have been no malls built in the United States of this scale for 15 years, and we've got to look to a mixed use. I think most of our residents are accepting of that. We do need solutions that we've heard from residents that mitigate traffic, make sure that schools stay strong as we build housing, and I've detected some movement in the opinion of folks saying, maybe less office would work, and maybe some more housing, particularly affordable housing, housing for teachers, and yes, maybe school facilities inside the project might be a mix that folks might buy into.
All right, thank you, Rod. And Kris?
Thank you. Valco. We all know that every certain years we do the general plan amendment. The city spent a lot of efforts, invite the community, invite residents, come together. There's multiple forums that people put the voices in, and we come out with a general plan amendment, and we even have a Valco specific plan. Those are the efforts with all residents that put it together. We should respect for that, and so I don't support exceptions. I think the Valco has been zoned for retail. I would like to see a minimum that we have an equal number square footage for the retail first, and the traffic. And then I totally opposing the 2 million office spaces because that's going to generate a lot of traffic, and also down the road, the APAPA requirement are going to come back with even more housing for the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris. All right, so that's our questions. And then we have another one. We'll start with Mr. David Wang. And the question goes like this. There's many in our community that have seen the heated discussions in the recent days and feel that there's not enough bilateral discussions. So, in your opinion, do you think our community is becoming divided? And if so, what's your plan to reverse it? Or do you believe that there is no problem in our community, and why? You have 1 minute.
All right. Well, I think we touched on this earlier. I really do believe there is a problem and a division in the community. Part of that problem is an understanding and an expectation. When you come, representative government is tough, and when you come to City Hall to try to make something happen, you need to have an understanding and an expectation of how an understanding of how the process works, and that can help you set an expectation to the result and how to work the system. So I think that's actually a big part of the problem. We need to come up with ways to better communicate how that process works and to be able to engage people in the public process. That's the very topmost and most important thing we do to resolve these things. At the end of the day, we will still have disagreements about the details. That's normal, and that's something we can work through once we get into the room and we're able to collaborate together.
Okay, thank you, David. And Jerry.
Right. So I think it's hard to generalize about the overall community, but certainly I think there are certain pockets where there are strongly held opinions, and I see them diverging. So what would I do about this? A lot of this discussion happens on this social media thing called Nextdoor, right? And I think an easy thing I would fix is to make it so that everybody can see what everybody else is writing. Right now you have Rancho Rinconada on one side, you got Monte Vista on the other side. You don't really see a lot of what's going on, right? So I think just having one joint discussion would help. And I alluded to this earlier because I see a lot of this at where I work, is people are much nicer in person. Right? If you're online flaming someone else, it's really easy for these things to get out of hand, right? And it's really about, if I were elected, I would sponsor workshops where people can come in and talk face to face. I really feel people work better together in person than on these a lot of these online type things. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Stephen?
Nextdoor. I started the city center group of Nextdoor. And in the beginning, it was great. There were disagreements. I almost never had a flag remove any posts unless somebody was obscene. But then something happened. The developers' people started posting, and they started flagging. I'm not on Nextdoor anymore. I was kicked off. So I don't even know what's going on there, but I understand that some people spend 24 hours a day arguing, and that is not productive. What another candidate said is correct. In person, people are more polite. But I'd also like to say in collecting signatures for Measure C, there's not as much divisiveness out there as you might think. It was extremely rare for someone not to support Measure C and sign the petition for the initiative to go on the ballot. It's a very small group of people sponsored by developers opposing this. It's not as divisive as you might think.
Stephen,
thank you.
Time's up. Thank you. And Rob?
Thank you. Appreciate the question. Well, I mentioned the Fremont Union High School District process focusing on Lynbrook before. I do think we need to do better. I think that's a particularly effective way. I will tell you that I've had hundreds of meetings during my first term in office with all kinds of folks. You will often see me hanging out at a coffee shop or a business here in town. And I've often been in the back of room at many of our city meetings, listening to people's direct input. So it's true, we aggregate input through these processes, and then the council gets a distilled view from staff. But I very often like to put myself in the meeting, not so much to contribute, but to listen, which is very important. I would tell you we have made moves toward increased transparency. Our budget is now in line, and you can drill down as far as you want on any other city. And if you think about the most fundamental thing we have to do in the city. It's figure out how we spend our money and prioritize your tax dollars.
Thank you, Rod. Kris?
All right. Instead of calling divisive, I'd rather say it's democracy. We this year probably one of the busiest year for the city. I saw a lot of meetings with lined up people waiting in the room, express their concerns. They oftentimes stay with council until midnight or past midnight, and that's not wrong. And we need to change that. We need to have the people to come forward, express their opinion at the right hour and right time. So that's just something that's a democracy. I think we should provide that thing. And then there's so many issues this year, and after the election, I really believe that we need to do something, reunite the whole community and bring everybody and compromise and explain what's going on in this community. I think that's something we ought to do.
Thank you, Kris. Parth?
I think the first step to encourage bilateral discussion in this community is to take a step back and ask the community what direction do we want to head. If we head a little bit north, we see downtown Los Altos as a successful development, and it's not that big. It's not the size of Valco. It's actually small retail locations. And growing up in Los Altos, I loved it. If we head east, we see Valco and Santana Row, which is also a successful development proposal. I don't think my job here or any of our jobs is to tell you what's right. It's to ask you what future do you want to see for Cupertino? I think the best way to get this done is if developers and candidates can hire people to go door to door, why can't the city hire people to go door to door and ask them, how do you feel? We often assume that people will come to these committees or people will come to meetings, but the city's responsibility is to go to the people and ask them, what do you want to see in Cupertino and how can we make Cupertino better for you? So I think the Cupertino city needs to be more proactive instead of waiting for the citizens to come to them, telling them what they want with the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth. And that wraps up all of our questions for today. Next, we're going to have the candidates, each of the candidates have a 2-minute closing remarks. We'll start with Jerry, but before we do that, if we didn't get to your questions, we do apologize. We have limited time for today. So, Jerry, are you ready?
Yes. So government works best when there's active participation from informed voters. And so the fact that y'all today are here listening to share our views is an important part of that process. And so for that, I thank all of you for being here. I also like to thank APAPA and Kris and Don for hosting us today. Now, this election coming in November is going to be an important one for Cupertino. The growth we have in our region brings opportunities, but it also brings challenges. And in particular, you see that there's a lot of these issues are driving the community apart, and so I like to be able to see if we can do things to bring the community back together again. If I'm elected, I promise I will be an independent voice to bring the community together. I'll be fair, I'll be transparent, I'll be accessible, and most importantly, I'm going to remember that I'm here for all of you, okay? And so look, as residents, we need to work with business owners and developers as partners and not demonize them. But at the same time, we need to make sure that development projects really bring benefits to the city that we love instead of taking away from that, all right? And as a community, we need a city council that can work together, take timely action, and basically move things forward to protect this quality of life that we have, all right? And so I'm endorsed by 3 city council members, and if you pay any sort of attention to city council deliberations, you'll know that they have very different views on growth, right? And they don't always agree, right? But they all agree that they trust myself to be someone that can do a fair and good job for the city. And I hope to earn your trust over the next 2 months, and I humbly ask for your vote on November 8th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry, for your closing remarks. Stephen?
I have 6 things I would like to talk about. The first thing I'll do as a council member is I'll advocate for residents, schools, and parks, and not for developers. I strongly oppose the developer-funded ballot measures that bypass the planning department, the city council, and the state requirement for environmental impact reports. Secondly, I will support the real revitalization of Valco, not a massive office complex. Third, I will encourage sensible growth and oppose uncontrolled hypergrowth. Fourth, I want to work for safe neighborhoods and bicycle and pedestrian safety. That's really been a pet peeve of mine in Cupertino, and I've been in communication often with the Director of Public Works regarding this issue. Fifth, I want to protect our environment. We should be working with other cities to force Lehigh Cement to be in compliance with state and federal environmental guidelines. And as I said before, we should prevent developers from bypassing the requirement for an EIR. And sixth, and most important, I'd like to promote honesty in government. All the council members should be required to post their calendars and who they met with. There's a lot of meetings with developers that council members meet with that we never know about. I'd like to oppose the PAC funding of political campaigns, and I would like to oppose the revolving door of former council members going to work for developers. And I'd like to restore the publishing of minutes of city council meetings, which for some reason stopped in the last few years. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen, for your closing remarks. And Councilmember Ross Sinks.
Yeah, I'll point out to one remark made here that the city council, the city regularly does poll our residents on these key questions. So you should know this is public information and fully available. If you think the city should be doing its part to keep our schools strong as we consider projects in town, if you think that regional growth is happening in cities all around us and you appreciate that, and you think we need council members with the vision and demonstrated ability to address traffic congestion, do something about it, bring safer bikeways, if you share my concern for the environment and want to further its stewardship, you'll recognize that we've accomplished a lot in the last few years. But there's also plenty more to do. I'm a forward-thinking candidate who listens and works to address our toughest challenges. You can learn more by going to rodsinks.com. I will tell you that as in 2011, I'm taking no contribution from developers or those who operate at developers' behest to fund campaigns. I know that others have made different choices. It's legal, but the question is, do you have the right independent voice to do so? So I've made that election. I respect that it's expensive to run for office, but that's where I stand. Working together, we can create the sustainable city that we and our children will want to live in. I'd appreciate your vote on November 8th. You can read all about my positions and what I've done and think about and react to ideas. You can go to rodsinks.com. I'd be happy to take questions via email. I'm number 3 on your ballot. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob, for your closing remarks. And for Mayor Wang.
Thank you. As a 30 years resident, I've learned to appreciate and fully understand the qualities that make Cupertino so unique and wonderful. Let me give you some of the facts about Cupertino. We're ranked the number 2, the best town to raise a family, and we're ranked. We have a Browns level of the bike-friendly community, and we are number 4 in the best town, and with the best public schools in California. Those are, something we all be proud of. So my vision for Cupertino is to continue its legacy as a safe, vibrant city that can raise a family. I'm committed to continue advocating for education and public safety. I have the experience to hit the ground running. In November, I ask for your support to represent you again on Cupertino City Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Kris, for your closing remarks. And Parth.
So not so long ago, about a decade ago, a young candidate by the name of Evan Lowe decided to run for office. People told him he's too young. People told him he should wait his turn. 10 years later, he is one of the lead legislators in our state right now, breaking barriers and doing wonderful things. He's proof that if we give young people a platform to stand on, they can really excel and really give back to the community that's helped them grow and develop through their years. I want to help restore faith in the city council, and I think the best way to do that is by bringing a new face and a new perspective to the city council. We've seen the status quo governance of Cupertino continue, and I think it's time we take a stance against that and make history by electing the youngest candidate to Cupertino City Council. I want to end by thanking Kris, Don, and APAPA for hosting this event and giving voters a chance to firsthand hear from candidates. I hope you guys will vote for me, and if you have any questions, I'd love to address them after the forum. Thank you.
Thank you, Parth, for your closing remarks. And David.
Thanks. Once again, I'd like to thank APAPA for organizing this forum. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Kris. Thank you, Anjali, and everybody else involved in the process. I hope you've had a chance to learn more about all of us. I certainly have learned more about my competitors in this race. I want to recap the priorities that I would follow if I should be elected. First, I want to engage all parties to find constructive solutions for the issues that are dividing us today. You know, communicating effectively is really challenging, but I'm committed to a vigorous, engaged public discussion, and that really will help us build that shared understanding and consensus. From that, we can find the right solutions for our community if we work together. I really want to learn and honor the outcomes of this election. That doesn't just mean how we vote on the initiatives, but it really means there's a message that the community is sending because of this process that really says we need to have public engagement. We need to have people feel that their public engagement is honored and effective. So I really want to do that and aggressively take steps to try to make people feel that this system will work right for them. This building should not be the place you go for ideas to die, and I think a lot of people feel that way. I really want to return to the public process for looking at development and development approval. And I believe that doing that will get us to the proper scale, to building to the proper scale for our community and for our future. I want to continue to enhance the local parks and open space and advocate for a clean and healthy environment. I want to strengthen the really important partnerships we have with the schools to keep them great. And I believe my experience and qualifications prepared me well for these challenges. You can learn more about me at fungforcupertino.com. I'd be honored with your vote in November. And I'm David Fung, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, David. And that wraps up the statements from the candidates. Now I will pass the podium to my fellow board member, Anjali Kauser, who is also on the school board of Cupertino's Union School District. Please give Anjali a welcome.
Thank you, Kris. And first of all, let's all give a big hand to our candidates for being here and answering the questions. And I would like to again thank all the candidates for participating in our democratic process, as we are very fortunate in Cupertino to have such a diverse group of candidates who care so deeply about our city and are willing to selflessly serve us and be out there to represent the best needs of our citizens. And also, I would like to thank Kris Zhang for being a great moderator for us this afternoon. Finally, I would like to thank our wonderful city crew for videotaping this event for us, and all of you for showing up here on a Sunday afternoon to hear directly from our candidates, and would like to remind you all to please vote on November 8th to make sure your voices are heard and we can vote the right people that we think would represent our city well in the city council. So thank you again for being here. And also, if I could invite our APAPA board members to come up after this to be taking some pictures with the candidates. And I see we have all the 4 city council members in the audience if they would like to join us, and Hong Wei, who is from the Fremont Union High School District.